name is Felix Okeke. I am your marriage counselor and coach. And tonight, I am also welcoming you to Marriage Without Tears channel. This is a channel that is dedicated for couples that desire to make a solid physical, emotional, and spiritual investment into their marriage. Couples that are determined to see their marriage see better days. Couples that are determined to walk in harmony and peace. This is the channel we dedicate to them. And of course, here we teach you all the necessary tools you need to actually grow and build a marriage and a family that is flourishing and blissful. This is your channel. If you believe in our vision, in our cause, please, there is a red button by my side here. Click on it and get subscribed. In the past couple of weeks, we have been dealing on the question of love. Love as a companionship kind of love, the compassionate kind of love. We're also going to look at the affectionate kind of love and the passionate kind of love. But today, we are essentially looking at the compassionate kind of love. How do you express compassion, empathy, kind-heartedness, tenderheartedness, in your marriage? How do you make your marriage to have these attributes? Because without kindness, without compassion, no marriage can go the distance. And I see a lot of couples that are in deep trouble in that area. And that is why I desire us to actually look at that subject today. What essentially is compassion? Compassion means the capacity to understand and appreciate the pains, the sorrows, the weaknesses, the areas of defeat, the areas of decay in the life of your spouse. And then having the zeal to go deep down, roll your sleeves, and then go deep down and draw that person out of that pain. That is what compassion is all about. The capacity to be eager to bring out the best in one another. When you recognize that there is a pain, there is a shortcoming, there is a weakness in the life of your spouse, and you have it as a goal inside of you to ensure that that spouse is drawn out of that weakness, that that pain is ameliorated, that thing that is causing a lot of negative energy in the life of that spouse is taken away, and you bring out the beauty in that spouse. That is what compassion is all about when it comes to marriage. It's about empathy, like I said. It's about being empathetic to somebody's, somebody's pains, being able to be there to draw that person out of the cocoon. There are so many couples who are going through marriage without this particular virtue. That is why a man can go out there, marry a woman, and that woman comes to that marriage with all manner of joy, all manner of expectations. And before you realize what is happening, instead of the joy being on the increase, it continues going down. And yet, the man is not able to sit back to check whatever is happening in the life of his spouse. There are also men out there who were very successful, very wonderful. They were seeing success in every area of life, physically, emotionally, spiritually. But immediately that woman came in, instead of seeing that joy grow, they plateaued and then began to fall in joy. So this is what we are talking about. When a spouse sees that there is a degeneration instead of a progression, and yet that spouse is not able to dig down to bring that person out of that pain and out of that sorrow, then there is a lack of compassion in that marriage. And I tell you, compassion is a very veritable aspect of love, which every couple must try as much as possible to find in them, to inculcate in them. Because if you have compassion and you are compassionate to one another, I can tell you that that marriage will grow. That marriage will reach the distance. And some of the things that cause conflicts between couples, it will be taken away before you know it. Compassion is a very, very important aspect of love. It is necessary for us to know that a whole lot of things can actually cause pain and sorrow in the life of a spouse. That if you don't actually take note, it may also degenerate into a lot of depression. Some of them could be possibly there was no child or there is no child in the relationship. And somehow the couple have been looking forward to having children for a very long time. And it appears that every lovemaking, every counseling, every visit to the clinic or to the doctor seems to be like pouring water into his sieve. It can make a woman, a man, to be angry on the inside. And that is the kind of thing we are talking about, pain of that kind. And sometimes if a couple is not paying attention to such pain, it may lead to a depression. So there is a need for you as a spouse in marriage, if you are facing such an issue, to be very, very objective and look at it from a compassionate, from a kind-hearted, even let your words be coated, with kindness, with tender, that kind of tender words that you speak to your spouse that will bring back the courage and the boldness to face the realities of the hour is very important. That's what we mean by compassion when it comes to expressing compassion in marriage. There are spaces where a spouse may lose his work, his job, maybe sacked from his place of employment, either for one reason or the other. When he comes home, you have to be compassionate enough. You have to show empathy to such a spouse, whether it's the man or a woman, because what takes him or her outside of the house, outside the home, to struggle and earn a living has somehow been cut off, it has been cut short. So there's the tendency for that person to begin to feel gloomy on the inside. And a compassionate spouse should measure the kind of words you speak at such moments. Compassion is very, very important in marriage, really. Because if your spouse is facing an issue, a problematic issue, and somehow you're not there to lend a helping hand or even to speak in the way that will draw strength, that will bring back the strength and the courage in such a spouse, then you are missing a very important aspect of marriage. Very, very important indeed. I have seen people who, for whatever reason, they became depressed, either because they were expecting to get a visa to travel abroad, and all plans have been made, only for them to be frustrated at the embassy. They come home, and if you begin to laugh at that person and begin to criticize that person and begin to say some ugly things, it means you are missing a very important aspect of love in your relationship. So you have to show empathy, the capacity to show empathy. That is what compassion is all about. And I pray that every man, every woman in marriage should, explore this aspect of the relationship, because every spouse wants to hear a soothing word, a word of encouragement, a word of motivation, especially at a point when that person is feeling very low-spirited. And I want you to have that thing, that aspect, that joy, that you need to know that as a man or as a woman in marriage. You need to understand that very well. It is a time to measure your words. It's a time to measure your actions. It's a time to fine-tune the goodness in you when you are trying to bring out the other, out of depression, out of pain, out of sorrow, out of discomfort, or to change a particular weak rhythm in that person's life. You need to have the kind of words and the kind of actions that will minister to that person. That is what compassion is all about in marriage. And I pray that you understand that. Please, before I go on, please click on this red button and get subscribed. I want subscribers in this channel. I want people who will, have faith in us and begin to enjoy this channel with us. Because if we are teaching and we don't have, we don't have participants, we don't have students outside there, then it means that whatever we are doing is in vain. But I believe that what we are teaching will add a lot of glory, a lot of virtue in your marriage. So click on this if you are a married person, or even you are waiting to be married. Click on this red button, get subscribed immediately as we go on. So how essentially can a couple develop this in their marriage? How do you develop this spirit of compassion in you? The first thing you must do is you sit back as a man or a woman in marriage to actually check, do an internal audit of your spouse. Check whether there is a pain, whether there is a sorrow, whether there is a weakness. Of course, there are many in the life of your spouse. Take pen and paper, write those things down. Be as objective as possible. Don't let your love for him or her to becloud your judgment. Be as objective as possible. Write down those weaknesses. Okay, let's take it from the physical weaknesses. Has he or she become obese after a period of time? Has she ballooned in size and is making it difficult for him or she to engage in quality life, even in sexual intercourse? Has she obeyed? Has she become bigger over a period of time? There are things that could have caused that. You need to sit back and write it down and be very sure that in the physical aspect, that shortcoming or that challenge or that pain that your spouse is going through, you pen it down. Be aware of that. That's the starting point. Emotionally, has she gone from being that happy, wonderful woman or happy, wonderful man to a nagging, critical, controlling spouse? So these are things you must also watch out when it comes to you measuring the emotional side of your spouse. What has degenerated over a period of time? What pain caused it? Is it because of the loss of job? Is it the loss of a child in the relationship? Is there the loss of prestige, the loss of honor? What actually is the problem? Is it the siblings or the parents of the bride or the bridegroom interfering in the relationship? What actually is the cause of loss of loss of joy? What actually is the problem? You need to find out what pains your spouse is going through. You also need to look at the spiritual perspective. Is he or she, has she gone down in her spiritual life, or in his spiritual life is no longer attentive to periods of prayer and fasting and all manner of spiritual commitments? Is that the area that is bringing a downward trend in the joy of that spouse? What actually is happening? You must take a critical look at your spouse, be able to identify those core areas where he or she is finding it difficult to cope with, the areas that are bringing sorrow and in a lot of discomfort in him or her. That is how to play your role as a compassionate spouse. And then the next phase of it is how to draw him or her out of that pain, out of that sorrow. And before I talk about that, I would like you to take a look at this red button by my side. Click on it and get subscribed. Be part of this great and wonderful channel. We are doing great things on this channel, and I want you to actually be part of it. We have done almost 100. This is the 108th video in this very particular channel. Go there, check out some of these videos. You will learn a whole lot. Okay, let's continue. How do you draw the person out of that pain? How do you draw that person out of that pain? If, for instance, somebody is going through a mental pain, maybe there is a discomfort, maybe there is something that tells him or her, I have not gotten enough education, and possibly that's why I am feeling sorry, I'm feeling so sorrowful on the inside. As a man or a woman in marriage, you can encourage your spouse to go back to school or to start taking some of these online courses that will bring back a lot of joy into the spirit, that will cause that person to also blossom, to grow. Because if a spouse is not growing mentally, there is a tendency for that person to become, depressed. So let that person have an activity that he or she can get involved in and get activated on the inside. It's very, very important indeed. If the person, for instance, is also going through a moment of spiritual downtrend, you also need to encourage that person, not by criticizing, not by castigating the person, but in kindness. That is what we are talking about, compassionate love. In kindness, in tenderheartedness, you begin to talk to that person. You begin to encourage that person to, be revived internally in the spirit, so that he or she can also begin to go back to that joyful exercise, that joyful spiritual exercise, which has brought a lot of joy for you in the time past. You also need to look at, possibly there are so many couples these days who are going through a lot of pain, a lot of sorrow because of their economic fortunes. And sometimes some of them may even feel, oh, I don't know what is happening to my work. I don't know what is happening to my business. You need to talk to that person in kindness. Let that person know that generally the economy is not so good by this time. But, join that person in, form a kind of synergy with that person, so that you can bring out certain things he or she can do to improve on the area of economy, to improve the work life, improve the career, improve the business. There must be a contribution. And if everything fails, for instance, and you have tried your best and you see that your best possibly is not enough, you can get somebody whom that your spouse respects, somebody he or she treasures his or her wisdom. Get that person involved, so that your spouse doesn't go into depression. It's also important. And you can also look out for some counselors out there. There are people who counsel in business, who counsel in the area of the spiritual life, they are married counselors, they are married therapists. There are all manner of therapists and counselors in every area of life. If you only take time to look out there, you will find them. Get them involved, so that the joy of your spouse shall quicken. You shall be able to revive the joy of your spouse. Compassionate love is all about identifying the sorrows, the pains, and all manner of reproaches, all manner of areas that your spouse is feeling frustrated about, depressed about, and finding it in your heart to dig into that spouse and rescue that spouse from that kind of depression. That is what compassion is all about. That is what kindness is all about. And like I said earlier, is a very vital part of love. And I don't know, I believe somehow I have ministered to somebody out there. And please do what we are saying from today, this day, today. Even after watching this very particular edition, put your close down the video and begin to do what I just mentioned. And you see the joy of your spouse and the love life in your marriage, blossom to the glory of God. I thank you very well for taking out time to be with us today. Next time, I will be looking at the affectionate kind of love. Look forward to seeing you again. And may God bless your marriage and keep your home to the glory of God. Have a wonderful time. Once again, I'm Felix Okeke. Click on this red button. Get subscribed to my channel. I believe in you and I believe in your marriage. Thank you.